Welcome to our session today. My name's Khalda Ashrafi and I work with the Bradford City Council leading on equalities. The session today, I'm going to be handing over to two of my very, very experienced and knowledgeable colleagues who are going to talk you through some of the work and the experiences that they have. Our session today is very much about looking at how we can use meaningful and authentic allyship in looking at some of the concerns and issues that are raised by our colleagues with disabilities within the council. So we're going to share with you some of the work that we're doing, and we're also going to, and so that part of the session is going to be led by Jodie, who has been leading on our work on allyship within the council. And then further to that, then we're going to have some thoughts and information shared with us by Saima Rafiq, who is one of our disability staff network leads. So she's going to share with you some of the experiences that she has as an ally and also as a staff network lead. So I think without further ado, then I'm going to hand over to Jodie Leach. Jodie Leach is one of our star members within the council, alongside doing a full-time role in information and governance. Jodie also leads on the work that we do that is about our Respect campaign and also about our allyship programme. So welcome, Jodie, and thank you so much for agreeing to be here. And we really look forward to hearing about what you've got to tell us.
Perfect. I'm just making sure people can hear me because I'm in the office and I've got my headphones in. So thumbs up if you can hear me. That's good. Thank you. So I'm going to share some slides. Just before I share the slides, as Khalda said, I lead on Bradford Council's internal equalities visions, which is called Respect. So there's a number of people on the call that will know what Respect already is and are probably already allies signed up to the allyship programme. So I'll just share my screen. I won't be 1 second. And hopefully you can see this. Cal, can you see the slides? Yeah, perfect. Right, I'll do it in slideshow mode now. If it works, the joys of technology. There you go. Thank you. So just to say now, obviously, I've got a bit at the end if you want to ask questions about this scheme. If you're aware of it, obviously, you probably know more than some people. But the Respect campaign is, as I said, the overarching equalities vision for the workforce for Bradford Council. So what is Respect? I'll share the slides afterwards if people want to read a little bit more, but as I said, it is the internal equalities vision. The aim is to build an inclusive workforce where everyone can be their true selves at work, and that spans all 9 protected characteristics, including disabilities. So it launched in National Inclusion Week in 2021, and as I said, the aim is to build inclusive workforce, but also to eliminate discriminatory behaviour as well. Respect itself is an acronym, and these form the Respect principles, which are rights, equality, speak up, person-centred, education, champion, and think first. So those are the Respect principles, the core values of the Respect campaign, and those are the things that we ask staff that are part of this to adhere to as part of the Respect work. So we're talking about allyship. So I kind of thought I'd do a bit of an introduction to Respect for those that don't know what Respect is. So the allyship programme is part of the Respect campaign, and this launched this year in 24th of May this year. And it's open to every single member of the council, regardless of where they are within the council. And the purpose of this is to champion equality, diversity, inclusion, to learn more about wider topics around equality, diversity, inclusion. It acts as a starting point as conversations in the office, and historically that has actually happened. You know, people have started to talk about equalities more in the office, and to ally to historically marginalised groups and communities that they're not a member of. So an ally can be absolutely anybody. And as I say, the allies are usually people that aren't part of a particular group but support another group, but you can be an ally to any group under the protected characteristics. So as of yesterday, we've got 509 colleagues signed up to the allyship programme, which is around about 6% of the workforce, which is a massive amount compared to other local authorities. I had a conversation with another local authority quite recently. They've got an allyship programme that's been running a year, and they have 6,000 staff and 18 allies. So it's quite a significant difference. So as part of the allyship programme, we run a number of sessions, and the sessions are decided and formed as part of the whole programme, but the staff networks, including the Disability Staff Network, has an input into what sessions are run. So these are the 6 sessions that we've run since June. The session around disability awareness and allyship, and I think I've got Daryl on the call, was run by Equality Together. Really good session, really successful. We're also running sessions next year around neurodiversity. So making sure that we cover all aspects of disabilities within the training. The sessions are not mandatory. So when you sign up to the allyship programme, you can pick and choose which sessions you attend. And even if you can't attend the sessions, there'll be a resource pack circulated to all the allies after the sessions have run. So that means you get the learning and understanding across the piece anyway. So also at the same time as the allyship, the Respect Awareness e-learning was launched. This includes 7 lived experience videos, which were shared by members of staff within the council. And those were then created into actual videos using actors, scripted, and the videos are different examples of discrimination or discriminatory behaviour, but also some positive aspects of equality, diversity, inclusion. So all the staff have access to this e-learning. There is a paper version as well for staff that don't access a computer. And as of yesterday, 1,559 colleagues have completed this training, which is about 25% of the IT-enabled workforce. The e-learning itself is also accessible to colleagues because it has text-to-voice software, includes closed captions on the videos, and as mentioned, there's a paper version as well. Okay, so, excuse me, apologies, I've still got a chest infection. So this is just some of the feedback that has come out of the Respect Awareness e-learning, and there's a feedback form that is people could complete, and out of the 1,015 respondents, when asked the question, I will be able to apply what I've learned, 95.7% strongly agree or agree to that statement. So that's really, really positive. The e-learning has a second function. It tells the person the principles of respect and how you can apply that into the workplace. So the e-learning is a really important part of the allyship programme because the lived experience videos allow somebody to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, which is something that we don't often do when we think about equality. We don't often think about what is it like for this other person. So that the videos give the opportunity for people to think a little bit deeper about their own behaviours, their own actions, which I think is a really positive thing. And just to kind of sort of finish off really, just some examples, and obviously I'll make sure these are anonymised. I'm not going to name any members of staff or anything. So on the back of the allyship programme, we've got multiple examples where, for example, people have come forward with hidden disabilities and disclosed to their colleagues, their manager, that they have a hidden disability and feel confident that they can do so. There's also examples where we've got an example where a member of staff who is an ally is supporting another member of staff who has a disability to fill out job applications, partly because of their level of autism, or the autism, how it works. And they've supported their staff to go for a promotion, and they've since secured that promotion. They've gone out the way to support that member of staff. So there is various, lots of examples where disabled staff have been allies themselves or people have been allies to staff who have disabilities. And I shall pass this back over to Calder. I'll stop sharing my screen. Has anybody got any questions about what I've just presented?
Thank you for that, Jodie.
No
that was really great. I mean, I think it was just, what we wanted to do in this session was just give you a bit of a sense of, what in the council, how we understand the progress of having allies and how we have embedded that in our campaign of respect, which is very much about the kind of behaviours and attitudes that we want to see in our staff, but that this particular scheme, is very much about people who are not from a particular characteristic feeling that they can still be allies to people who are from a different characteristic. So often we have goodwill, we all do, but we don't often have a channel where we can positively and meaningfully, utilize that goodwill, to help others around us. And I think disability is very much one of those areas certainly within our staff teams, where we want to be able to empower people to be able to support, whoever they are, from whichever protected characteristic or low income group they might be, that this program allows people to not just learn more about other protected characteristics they may or may not be from, but also for them to be able to actively participate in, being positive about supporting them. So sometimes it's about, because I'm an ally myself, so I know that, but sometimes it's about, well, is it going to look wrong in some way if I, speak up and say, look, I really want to support you, but I'm not, I don't have a disability, or I am not a carer, how do I still, make that gesture? So I think, there is a lot in the program that, we are trying to roll out, where people get an opportunity to learn, to train and to support. And, I think the initial feedback from that is showing us that this has been something that's been well received and really positive. Is there anyone that wants to ask anything or add any comments or anything at all at this stage? We are going to have some time at the end for questions as well. Yeah. Okay. All right then. So Jodie, if you don't mind muting yourself, because I think we're getting a lot of background noise from you at the office. Great stuff. And then I'd like to invite our Disability Staff Network lead, Saima Rafiq, to tell us a little bit about the staff network and the kind of challenges that she's faced, or that she sees disabled staff facing on a daily basis, and the kind of support that both the Disability Staff Network and the Allyship Programme have provided.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Saima. Go for it.
So just a bit of introduction just about myself first. So I'm Saima Rafiq. I was born visually impaired, and then since 2006 I've been registered legally blind. I work at Bradford Council supporting elected members, and I also lead on the Disability Staff Network. So I'm just wanting to share some examples of my experience of what it's to be an ally. Sorry, I'm just a bit nervous. I've got 3 examples here: an inspirational ally, a strategic ally, and a spontaneous ally. So as I said earlier, I chair the Disability Staff Network at Bradford Council. And in my role as chair, I'm supporting a number of people on an ongoing basis. And an example I want to share with you today is a member of staff who has autism, who's found it really difficult to express his needs to managers. And I've supported him by helping him to convene conversations, to have meetings with. Sorry, I've just lost my thought here. Just give me a minute, sorry. He's found it difficult to express his needs to managers, and I've helped him to overcome this by convening conversations, and also helping him to have a voice. An outcome of this has been apologies. An outcome of this has been to help him improve managers' knowledge and their skills, so that they can support him better. When this member of staff actually joined the staff network, he found it really, really difficult even to actually speak at the first meeting. And then when he sort of heard everybody else sharing their experiences, it helped him to come forward and express his needs and how difficult he found it, because he was in a safe space and he felt like other people were having similar issues, so he didn't feel like he was the only one. And it's made out of all the members, I think, in the staff network that we have, and we have 78 at the moment, I think it's made a great difference to him. And also for myself as an ally, I feel like I'm doing something to help someone, somebody who really finds it really hard to express themselves. So I think he's one of the positive examples from the network. Another example I have is that recently we've had a senior director join the council, and he heard about the Disability Staff Network. And he's actually joined the network and also offered us support, so that he can raise the issues that we have at a higher level, so that change can be made at a higher level and it can take place at a greater pace, because sometimes we as a network come against stumbling blocks, and there might be things that we think that can be done quicker, but they just seem to take a long time. So I think that's another person that's aligned himself with us and actually helping us to sort of raise the profile of the staff network. The final example I have is a personal one to myself. So a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you're aware, but I went to, if you know about it, I went to Leeds. I went to the Apple shop in Leeds. I'm not sure of how many of you, if you're aware where that is or if you've ever visited. But as a visually impaired person, I was using my long cane. I had my dark glasses on, so I made my way into the shop. A very busy environment, not an environment that I was used to. And I was stood in the shop because, as there's a lot of people, I was just stood there thinking at some point somebody will notice me and come and assist and ask, if there was anything I needed. I stood there for probably about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It may have been longer, it may have been less. And I had nobody seemed to notice, because and then out of nowhere, this gentleman came up to me and said, "Oh, are you okay? Do you need some help? Would you like me to guide you to someone that can assist you?" And I sort of said yes, but at that time I felt really invisible, because for me, I thought I'm using my long cane, I've got my dark glasses on, it should be obvious that I'm there, and I must need help. But I just felt people walking past me, I've just felt ignored. And I think had it not been for him, I think I probably would have just walked out. So that's just my personal example there. And just finally, I just want to end on just with a bit of a challenge and a bit of thought for everyone. For someone someone you work with, what do you think what do you think could be your first step to be an ally to them? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Simon. That was really quite moving and very warming in terms of some of the steps that you've taken as an ally, but also in the staff network that you lead to inform and to encourage and enhance positive change. I like the question that you've left people with. So would you just repeat the question, and let's see if people round our screen might like to make a response.
So it's just challenge a thought. For someone you work with, someone that you may know, what do you think could be your first step to be an ally to them? Because I think we do that. I think we all do that on a daily basis, probably without thinking. But just a thought.
Okay, so people that are on the call, what are your thoughts? Are you a formal or an informal ally already? What kind of changes have you been part of making happen? And what kind of changes do you feel still need to happen? So the rest of the time that we've got now is very much for you, for questions, for thoughts that you might want to share, for anything that you feel is an important part of what allyship should look like, and how we support our disabled colleagues within our particular organisations. So over to you. Does anyone have any thoughts on the question that Simon's posed firstly? Anyone want to kind of jump in here?
I was just going to, sorry, I'm a bit froggy. I was just going to say it's quite difficult with invisible disabilities, because if you don't know the challenges people are facing, it's quite difficult to be supportive of them.
Yeah, and I would take that on board. Simon, is there anything that you want to come back with to respond to on that? You're on mute, Simon.
Sorry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
My personal experience, obviously, I don't use my long cane if I'm in an area where obviously I'm comfortable, and but in an area, but then when I need to be, when I'm in an unfamiliar area, I will use a place. I will use my symbol as people see it. But I just think I do understand the difficulties. I think sometimes it's easier for people if they see somebody with a symbol thinking, oh, well, they might need help. But I don't know. I don't know. I kind of don't know what to say there, really. I kind of get it from both sides, I think. But I just think it's just being able to, I think sometimes if you just speak to people, I mean, I know some people might find it difficult to actually speak to somebody with a disability, or they're just not sure what to say. But I think 9 times out of 10, my personal experience, I think we will say if we feel uncomfortable, if we don't want help, or if we do.
Okay, that's really useful. And I think, you know, kind of just makes me think a little bit about, well, so there are obviously like disabilities that are not visible. But when you work with someone, I guess in a working environment, you know, you may come to know about it, or you may come to know because something about their disability is you know, like making the working, or something about the working environment is not sitting well with perhaps the neurodiversity that they have, and that they need support in, you know, like maybe having clarity of what the task is, or you know, there may be some other things that will really help them. So I think obviously it's knowledge by consent, so it's only if someone shares that with you, but there are some things that, you know, that are visible. You know, like for example, you would know if somebody had a hearing impairment, or you would know if somebody had a visual impairment. Jodie, did you want to come in here?
Yeah, just kind of add something there. I mean, obviously, because we're talking about allyship, I think the important thing is to obviously work towards and fostering an environment where people feel comfortable to self-disclose as well, because we talk about hidden disabilities. So I'm part of the LGBTQ+ staff network, which often is an area that people don't kind of feed into, and there are a lot of staff that perhaps aren't disclosing that. But if we work towards the environment and create better understanding around the different topics, including neurodiversity, including the wider topic of disabilities, then hopefully that will give people a little bit more confidence to be able to disclose, particularly if they need, for example, reasonable adjustments or things like that. And I think that's kind of the way forward, rather than kind of singling people out. It's kind of fostering that culture that everything's acceptable, and people, if they need some support, should get it, I suppose.
I mean, I think also just thanks for that, Jodie. I mean, I think that's really, you know, it's really helpful to kind of hear that from the more kind of like equality and the allyship perspective. I think also some people, you know, may not necessarily reach out for help, but will hope that people around them, you know, will be able to support them in some way. And sometimes it might not be a particular issue, but it might be that someone is feeling, you know, less confident because they feel that, you know, their disability is in some way, you know, being judged, you know, and that's where I think the role of an ally, you know, is hugely important, because, you know, it's about understanding that that person may now just need some reassurance, just someone that will stand by them and say, you know, whatever it is, you know, I'm here to help. How can I help? You know, or is there something that, you know, I can do, or do you want to just have a coffee? You know, like in one of the videos that Jodie mentions, you know, that is one of the scenarios where someone is being, you know, like being made to feel quite upset because of their protected characteristics. But then the ally, you know, very quickly steps in there and says, do you want to have a chat? do you want, is there something, something quiet we can go? Would you like to, you just have a bit of, a little bit of a timeout and tell me how you feel? And, and sometimes those very small gestures can actually impact and mean so much. Are there any other thoughts or questions about, your own workplaces where you're working now? Do you have any kind of similar programs like the allyship program that we're running, or do you feel that, there are certain initiatives that you're running that are, really useful in terms of how you're supporting your colleagues? It'd be great to hear about them. I think it'd be really useful. Anyone want to come in on this point? We have a very quiet audience today. That's fine. So yeah, I mean, I think one of the key things that I've certainly felt with the allyship program is the confidence it gives other people to be able to say, look, we'd really like to, like stand, in solidarity with you on this issue. We've also seen a lot of people come forward to help us plan events within the council that highlight, profile and celebrate different things that are going on, obviously disability being one of them, which is why we're here today. So that has generated a lot of positivity, but I think creating the confidence of the organisation has to come from a place where we work with people from who they are and where they are, and then really look at how we can build that confidence with them. And I think that's part of what we are hoping to achieve with the allyship program. So that's something that we are very keen to develop, and hopefully we'll be able to come back and tell you about other things that we're developing alongside that. Saima, I just wanted to come back to you, and I just wondered if you might like to talk a little bit about the work that the staff network has been doing, the disability staff network, because I mean, obviously you're a very healthy and wide number of 70 plus, but you've also been developing an action plan.
Yeah. I can talk about that. So as I said earlier, the disability staff network, we set that up in 2021, and we started off with about 30 members, but at the very beginning, I think from our first meeting, we kind of thought from our first meeting, what we got out of that was that there were certain areas that were coming up where people were finding it difficult, as disabled staff to get help, whether that would be with equipment, understanding from managers, their health and well-being. So what we decided, because we have a steering group, we sat down, we looked at what was fed back at meetings, and then we put that into an action plan. So currently our action plan is broken down into 4 areas. So we have, as I said, IT, we have disability confident, there's quite a lot of things that come under HR, so we kind of have a HR work plan, and under that HR work plan there's training for managers, there's your access to work, it's quite a long list, trying to attract more disabled staff to the council, development, retaining, as I said, a vast list. And then the other area we have is health and well-being, and that's kind of a big area where, it all kind of links in, because obviously if you don't have the right tools to do your job, you don't have your manager understanding, then that obviously affects your mental health. So people at the network shared their experiences, and so we're currently actually working through that work plan. On the IT side of it, that seems to be the area that we seem to have made the most progress. So my co-lead, he's taken that on board, and we have regular meetings with our IT director at the council, and we sort of discuss issues that we have. So when you're using assistive tech, like myself who's visually impaired, I use a program, assistive tech, and when the council are introducing new systems or whatsoever, they don't seem to give any thought. So then your machine literally, or your machine doesn't work, and your tech, it just doesn't, it stops working, and then we have to wait as disabled, because we can only use the machine that we have. So if that machine breaks down, then it stops you doing your job, and then the time it takes for that to be fixed. So what we've done is also people actually, going back to what we were talking about, declaring a disability. So at the council, we realised that there wasn't a list, a central list of who uses what assistive tech. So one of the first things that we did, we created a tracker system where we asked people to email if they've registered with the Disability Staff Network. We sent them the form out, and we asked them to fill this form in, so that we can then forward on to IT. And then when this person has an issue, they have like a priority service. So if I rang up IT, it would already flag up on the system. I wouldn't even have to have that conversation every time to say, I'm visually impaired, I can't see this. So, so they know how to deal with my call. So that's one of the things that we've done at the moment. We're trying to get more and more people to sign up to that, and just explain what's the positive side of that is, because a lot of people get frustrated when you ring up, especially if you're not IT literate, or you can't see your screen, or you don't understand, what they're saying to you. So that's one thing that, that's been a big improvement. That I think that's one of the main things that we've done at the moment. And another thing that we're looking at is actually, this goes back to, this will sort of go on to what we were talking about yesterday when we had the reasonable adjustments session, but looking at, access to work and other areas. So I think that's probably the most, as I said, IT is probably the main area that we worked on, and the other areas that are like the HR work plan is quite a long list, so that we know it's going to take quite a bit of time to get through that. So yes, that's I think that's
great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Simon, because I think it's really helpful to, I know talking about allyship today, but the allyship that you create even within staff networks, is very key to the kind of issues that we then raise at senior management to say, look, these are, very important things that we need to talk about for all staff networks. But also, I think the kind of the support that you nurture within the staff networks also then means that obviously that's a form of allyship, but it also means that, there's a collective voice that A, hopefully feels supported, but B, then has the confidence to be able to talk about the issues that are important. And clearly that's what's reflected in the work that the Disability Staff Network have been doing with the work plan that they've put together. So they've set the course of what needs to happen in order to make, the working lives of staff with disabilities better, but also, that movement towards, when we say like Jodie mentioned earlier, that notion of people bringing their whole selves to work. So whether it's a visible or non-visible disability, people should feel that they can come to work and be their whole selves. And I think that's what we really, want to see happen through our work with the allyship programme and through our work with the staff networks. Any thoughts, any comments at this point?
I just want to go on. I think I'm just reading Daryl's comment. The attitude, attitude is the biggest challenge, and I think he's absolutely right. I think that's the thing. We need to change people's attitudes.
But Daryl, can we bring you in at this point? Are you able to speak? Hi there.
Hello. Sorry about
that. How are you?
No, thank you.
I thought rather than read your comments out, if you were able to speak, that it would be really lovely to hear from you, because obviously you work in an organisation where, your key priority is about, disability. So, yeah.
I think it all connects to the inherent bias that we all have. And I think we all need to sort of educate ourselves in understanding, because we all have our bias, we all have our we have the sum of our backgrounds, our experiences, our environment, and all of that sort of stuff. The trick is for that not to get in the way of and disable people as a consequence of the attitudes and the prejudices and the stereotype views that I may have. So which is why it's inherent, you know, understanding those biases is key to making the workforce much more open, and much more likely for a disabled person or any of the protected characteristics to dare to risk and trust and say, this is who I am and this is part of me. It doesn't define me, but you know, these are my access needs, etc. So there's a wider level of understanding that comes as a consequence of that, and the biggest issue is attitude. You know, it's about that willingness to understand, the willingness to challenge your own perceptions and assumptions, and to learn, willing to be wrong, to learn from it, and to improve as a consequence of that, rather than ignoring, judging people, and creating a culture that excludes. And so it's an ongoing process that we all have to go through, and it has to be led by the most senior people within the organisation to create that culture. That and that goes through all of the recruitment, retention, and selection processes, your disciplinary processes, your opportunities in terms of training and development, career paths, and all of that sort of stuff, and walking the talk and participating in these programs to actually open their minds so that they understand that they don't have all the answers, and therefore have that inquiry and be curious, but done in a respectful manner. You're on mute.
Sorry, that was me. I've just gone off a little world of my own. So I was just going to say, just in response to some of what you've said, I just wanted to put a question out there to you and, you know, to other participants on the line. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you talk about we need to, you know, have a more open environment where people are willing to, you know, like talk, explore, and even sometimes make mistakes. But I know that, you know, like with certain, you know, like with colleagues of mine, or when I've worked in the field of equality over the years that I've been in this field, that sometimes people don't feel confident enough to do that because they're overcome with fear that they might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So is there something that you can say to not necessarily to reassure people, because we are going to make mistakes, I guess, before we get it right, but is there something that you can say that kind of helps people on that journey?
I think firstly that's about making that person feel welcome, making that person feel that they are part of the team, asking if they've got any neat access needs, asking that in a respectful way, not asking what's wrong with somebody, for example. Yeah. You know, and respecting if people don't want to talk about it as well. But one of the things that Jane and I talk about, I know Jane's on the line, is we talk about explaining the unwritten rules that happen within the office culture and other cultures as well. So, for example, you know, at certain times of the day, somebody's turn to make the tea or whatever it is. Yeah, or that is really difficult for somebody who might be neurodiverse to understand those clues, and to you know, just to actually, for somebody to actually spend a bit of time to be their buddy, if you like, not in a patronizing way, or you know, something that comes over all false, but just actually be alongside that person, and not to make assumptions. But it's also, and it's also about, you know, people have their own level of trust. Some people will want to disclose what's going on for them, some people don't, and that's absolutely personal. I mean, it's just like, you know, so, you know, like sexuality, it's up to you. You want to create an environment so somebody can be open and bring their whole selves to work, and the way to do that is to practice and practice and practice in terms of being open and live the way that you would expect other people to treat you. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's self-respect, and it's creating an environment to make it more likely for people to get involved. So there is this thing that we nicked from an American slide, and it was called the anatomy of an ally, and it talks about, and the anatomy of an ally has a mouth to speak out against injustice, a nose to sniff out implicit bias, eyes to identify privilege, ears to listen to the person's experience, a heart to cultivate empathy for somebody who might be feeling oppressed, and hands to take action and make a change. Yeah, and I think understanding, you know, our role in that anatomy, I think is will go a long way forward. Never going to get completely there, but you're much more likely to create a culture within your organisation if you if you're open and receptive to learning, and try not to and don't let fear getting in the way of approaching people. You know, there's this fear around talking to people who are different to you, who you perceive to be different to yourselves. We are all human beings, and the risk with the fear is the othering that happens. And when we other people, prejudice happens, stereotyping happens, prejudice happens, and we disable people. And that's what we don't want to happen. So, you know, we have to, and part of the role, I think, is as an organisation, for people to be confident and not feel fearful, and not feel as if they're going to be judged by so asking the stupid question, if you like. Yeah, but you know, disability etiquette is key to this as well, and I can give you some top tips on that another time if you like. But you know, it is important to actually respect the individual.
Thanks so much for that, Daryl. And yes, I think we will definitely want to take you up on that for a session where we can talk about, you know, what does that look like? What would those top tips be? And perhaps that's where, you know, you might want to share, you know, the anatomy that you described just now, you know, on allyship. That sounds really interesting as well. And I'm sure that's something that Jodie will be interested in seeing too.
Well, Jodie's seen it. It was part of the training that we gave on the.
Fantastic!
Was, yeah.
Confirm that was part of the training that they delivered. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Oh, well, that sounds really good. That's brilliant. So I'm just conscious of time. I'm just wondering, are there any final thoughts or questions that anyone would like to share on the session? And is there anything anyone wants to ask, or any comments that you might like to make about, you know, yourselves or your experience or the organisation you're in? Okay, so then what I'm going to ask then is for my two speakers, if you'd just maybe like to share any final points before we bring the session to a close. Is that okay? Jodie, would you like to maybe say something wildly inspirational? Jodie is very inspirational, I have to say.
Put me on the spot there, didn't you? No, what I was going to say is, and this is particularly for the organisations that are outside the council, because I know there's people on the call from the NHS and other colleagues, and from the VCS, for example, we are actually exploring rolling out respect across the district, across the systems. So that conversation has started. And I think there's a piece of work about mapping existing initiatives to make sure it doesn't overlap with any other things that are happening. But certainly within the VCS and the commission services, that's a conversation that I'm starting next week. So watch this space. It's something that I think we all can be allies. You know, if you work in a people-led organisation where it's people-focused, I think obviously allyship is quite a critical part. And I think I'm using you as an example, Daryl. You know, your organisation lives and breathes this. So it's kind of getting that message across all the other organisations. So that's my end topic. So hopefully that we'll have some positive news next year.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for that, Jodie. And Saima, any final points, any last thoughts you'd like to share as we finish?
No, just just repeat what I said earlier, basically. So for someone that you work with, what do you think what could be your first step to be an ally? That's all I can leave you with, that thought.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you so much for that. And thanks, Daryl. Your input has been really useful as well. Just wanted to thank everyone that's come onto the call today. I hope you have a wonderful week where there's lots of really great sessions planned where we're going to be looking at and celebrating, Disability Awareness Week. I'd just like to say thanks to you all and to our speakers, Jodie and to Simon. So with that, then I think we'll draw the session to a close. Enjoy the rest of the week and thank you so much for coming today.